How to Make Procrastination Feel Uncomfortable and Studying Feel Automatic, a motivational audiobook by Astrian. You have probably felt that heavy feeling in your chest when a textbook sits in front of you. Your brain starts whispering soft excuses that sound so reasonable in the moment. You tell yourself you will start in 10 minutes, but 10 minutes turns into 2 hours. You end the day tired but somehow accomplished nothing important. That cycle is not a sign that you are lazy or broken. It is a sign that your brain has learned a pattern that keeps you stuck in comfort. The good news is that what your brain has learned, your brain can unlearn. This book exists to help you flip that pattern upside down so that avoiding work becomes the thing that feels wrong. Most motivational books tell you to just try harder or to wake up earlier. They assume you lack discipline when really you lack a system that works with your nature instead of against it. You do not need to become a robot who never wants to relax. You need to understand why your brain chooses distraction over focus and how to quietly reverse that choice. This book will walk you through simple shifts that make procrastination feel heavier than studying. By the time you finish reading, you will not be fighting yourself every single day. You will have built a version of you who walks toward the desk without needing a massive push. Let us begin the work of making your best habits the easiest ones. Chapter 1: The Comfort Trap. Your brain is designed to keep you safe, not to make you successful. It treats anything unfamiliar or difficult as a potential threat that must be avoided. When you sit down to study, your brain sees the hard work ahead and sounds an alarm. That alarm does not scream danger. It whispers softly that you deserve a break or that you can start later. This is the comfort trap, where your own mind tricks you into thinking relaxation is more urgent than progress. You feel relief when you walk away from the desk, but that relief is a lie. It lasts for a moment but creates guilt that stays for hours. Understanding this trap is the first step to breaking free from it. Procrastination feels good in the very moment you choose it because your brain releases a small hit of calm. You scroll on your phone or watch a video, and your nervous system believes it has escaped something painful. The problem is that the task does not disappear while you distract yourself. It sits in the back of your mind, growing heavier with every minute you avoid it. What started as a small assignment becomes a mountain because you let it sit there too long. Your brain then uses that mountain as proof that the task is too big to handle. You end up stuck in a loop where avoiding work makes the work harder to face. This cycle repeats until you feel exhausted even before you begin. The comfort trap is dangerous because it feels harmless in the beginning. You tell yourself you are just taking 5 minutes to relax before you start. Those 5 minutes stretch into an hour while you tell yourself the same lie again. Your brain starts to believe that the distraction is actually part of your routine. You train yourself to associate the desk with stress and the couch with safety. Over time, sitting down to study becomes physically uncomfortable because your body expects discomfort there. You have built a habit of escape without even realizing you were building anything at all. Breaking this starts with noticing how often you choose comfort over clarity. To escape the comfort trap, you must stop waiting for the feeling of motivation. Motivation is an emotion that comes and goes like the weather outside your window. If you wait for the perfect mood to study, you will spend most of your life waiting. The people who get work done are not the ones who feel excited to do it. They are the ones who have trained themselves to move before the excuses arrive. They treat studying like brushing their teeth, something they do because it is time to do it. They do not ask themselves if they feel like it because feelings are not in charge. You can build this same muscle by deciding ahead of time when you will move. The comfort trap loses its power when you stop negotiating with yourself. Every time you ask whether you should study now or later, you give your brain a chance to choose later. Later always sounds better because later is imaginary and carries no real effort. You must remove the question entirely and replace it with a simple rule. When the clock hits your study time, you move toward your desk without thinking. You do not wait for your feelings to agree because they rarely will at first. Your feelings will catch up once your body is already in motion. This is how you stop being ruled by comfort and start being ruled by commitment. You will know you are winning against the comfort trap when avoiding work starts to feel strange. There will come a day when you try to delay your study session and something feels off. Your mind will feel restless because it knows you are supposed to be working. The guilt of avoiding the task will feel heavier than the effort of starting it. That moment marks the flip where your brain begins to favor action over avoidance. You will have retrained your comfort instincts to point toward progress instead of escape. This is not about becoming a machine that never rests. It is about making rest feel earned and making avoidance feel uncomfortable. Chapter 2. The 5-second rule, not the food one. There is a tiny window between the moment you think of doing something and the moment your brain talks you out of it. That window lasts about 5 seconds before your excuses rush in to save you from effort. In those 5 seconds, you have the power to move before your mind builds a case against moving. This is the 5-second rule, and it is the simplest tool for breaking the habit of delay. You do not need motivation or confidence to use it. You only need the ability to count backward from 5 and then move your body. This rule works because it interrupts the pattern of thinking that leads to procrastination. It turns hesitation into action before hesitation can win. Your brain is wired to protect you from anything that requires mental energy. When you think about opening your textbook, your brain immediately calculates the cost of that effort. It reminds you of how tired you feel or how boring the material might be. These thoughts are not facts about the task. They are defense mechanisms designed to keep you comfortable right where you are. The 5-second rule bypasses those defense mechanisms entirely by moving before they finish firing. You do not give your brain time to build the case for waiting. You simply count and move like a soldier responding to a command. This simple act changes everything about how you start. The counting itself serves as a distraction from your own doubts. When you focus on saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, your mind stops spinning stories. You interrupt the loop of overthinking that usually keeps you stuck in place. Overthinking is the fuel that feeds procrastination because it makes small tasks feel enormous. The more you think about starting, the harder starting becomes. The 5-second rule stops the thinking and forces the doing. It turns starting into a reflex rather than a decision you have to make over and over. You stop asking yourself if you feel ready and simply begin. This shift takes the pressure off and makes action feel lighter. You can apply this rule to every moment where you feel resistance rising. You feel the urge to check your phone instead of reading your notes, and you count backward. You feel the desire to close your laptop and lie down, and you count backward. You feel the temptation to tell yourself you will start in 10 minutes, and you count backward. Each time you use the rule, you strengthen a new pathway in your brain. That pathway says that when you think about doing something important, you move immediately. Your old pathway said that thinking and delaying were the natural order of things. You are slowly replacing that old order with a new one that serves you better. The beauty of this rule is that it works even when you feel terrible. You do not need to be well-rested or excited or confident to count to 5. You do not need to believe that the task will be fun or easy. You only need to be willing to move your body in the direction of the work. Once your body is in motion, your mind usually follows because minds hate being left behind. You will often find that the hardest part was simply the 5 seconds before you started. After that, the task feels manageable because you are already inside of it. This is why the rule is so powerful for people who struggle with procrastination. Using the 5-second rule consistently will change how you see yourself over time. You will begin to trust that you are someone who acts instead of someone who waits. Every time you count down and move, you send a message to your brain that you are reliable. Your brain starts to believe that when you think of doing something, you will actually do it. This trust reduces the internal battle you feel before starting because the fight becomes shorter. You stop wasting energy arguing with yourself and start using that energy to work. The 5-second rule does not make you perfect, but it makes you faster. And being faster means you spend less time stuck in the painful space between wanting to start and actually starting. Chapter 3. Making later feel heavy. The word later is one of the most dangerous words in your vocabulary because it sounds so innocent. When you tell yourself you will study later, you feel a sense of relief that you have made a plan. The problem is that later never comes with the same energy you have right now. Later arrives with new distractions, new tiredness, and new reasons to push things even further. You end up moving the goalpost again and again until the day is gone. This chapter is about changing how your brain feels about the word later. You are going to train yourself to see delay as a cost rather than a gift. You will learn to make putting things off feel heavier than doing them. Most people only think about the relief they feel when they postpone a task. They do not think about the weight that piles up while they wait. Every hour you delay adds a little more stress to your shoulders without you noticing. By the time you finally sit down to work, you are carrying the pressure of all those hours. That pressure makes the task feel harder than it ever needed to feel. You are not just doing the work anymore. You are doing the work while also carrying guilt, anxiety, and self-criticism. This hidden weight is the real cost of procrastination that nobody talks about. Learning to feel that weight earlier helps you choose differently. You can practice making later feel heavy by asking yourself one simple question. When you catch yourself about to delay a task, ask what that delay will cost you. Will it cost you peace of mind during your evening relaxation? Will it cost you sleep because you have to rush before bed? Will it cost you the good feeling of being ahead of your responsibilities? These questions force your brain to see the full picture of what later means. You stop pretending that later is a free option with no consequences. You start seeing that choosing later is actually choosing a harder version of the same task. This shift in thinking turns procrastination from a relief into a bad deal. Another powerful tool is to visualize your future self carrying the weight you are trying to avoid. Imagine yourself tomorrow morning feeling rushed and stressed because you did not start today. See that version of you wishing they could go back and tell you to just begin. Now imagine yourself finishing the task today and feeling light and free for the rest of the evening. Which version of you do you want to be? This visualization creates emotional stakes that your brain can actually feel. Your brain responds to emotions much more than it responds to logic alone. Giving your future self a voice helps you make choices that protect your future peace. You become someone who cares about the person you will be tomorrow. You can also make later feel heavy by creating small consequences for delay. Tell a friend when you plan to study so that avoiding it would mean admitting you did not follow through. Set a timer for when you will begin and treat that timer like a real appointment. Place your phone in another room before your study time so that avoiding work is harder than starting. These small structures make procrastination physically uncomfortable rather than emotionally easy. You are designing your environment so that the path of delay has bumps and obstacles. The path of action becomes the smoothest road available to you. This is how you flip the game so your environment works for you instead of against you. Over time, your brain will learn that later is a painful choice that leads to stress. You will feel a slight discomfort when you try to push a task forward because your mind now connects delay with struggle. This discomfort is a gift because it acts as an early warning system. When you feel it, you know that the easiest path forward is to just start now. You stop needing to fight yourself because your instincts are now aligned with your goals. Your brain has been retrained to see immediate action as the way to avoid pain. This is the state where studying starts to feel automatic and procrastination starts to feel unnatural. You have successfully flipped the weight from one side to the other. Chapter 4. Killing the Perfect Moment Myth. There is a fantasy that lives in the minds of people who struggle to start. It is the fantasy that someday the conditions will be perfect for studying. The room will be quiet, the mood will be right, and the motivation will flow like a river. You tell yourself that when that moment arrives, you will finally be able to focus completely. That moment never arrives because perfect conditions do not exist in real life. There will always be noise, tiredness, distractions, and 1,000 reasons to wait. Waiting for perfect is just another form of procrastination, dressed up in nice clothes. You must kill this myth if you want to become someone who studies automatically. The truth is that the best work is rarely done under perfect conditions. Some of the most productive people work in crowded coffee shops with loud music playing. Others study late at night when they are exhausted because that is the only time they have. They do not wait for motivation to strike them like lightning. They show up regardless of how they feel and let the work happen anyway. Their success comes from consistency, not from waiting for the stars to align. You have the same ability to produce quality work even when everything feels wrong. You just have to stop using imperfection as an excuse to delay. When you kill the perfect moment myth, you free yourself from waiting for permission. You stop looking for signs that you are ready and simply decide that you are ready enough. Ready enough means you have your materials and a pulse, and that is all you need. You do not need to feel excited or focused or energized before you begin. Those feelings often show up after you start, not before. They are the result of action, not the requirement for it. This is a huge shift that turns everything you thought about motivation upside down. You become the source of your own readiness instead of waiting for readiness to find you. One way to practice this is to deliberately start when conditions are bad. Choose a time when you are tired or distracted and study anyway for just 10 minutes. Prove to yourself that you can do it even when nothing feels right. Each time you succeed under bad conditions, you weaken the belief that perfect is necessary. You build confidence in your ability to work through discomfort and distraction. This confidence grows until you no longer fear starting under any conditions. You become someone who can sit down and work whether the sun is shining or the house is noisy. That is real freedom that waiting for perfect could never give you. You will notice that starting in imperfect conditions often leads to better focus than you expected. Your brain stops waiting for ideal circumstances and just gets into the flow of the work. The distractions that once seemed so important fade into the background once you are engaged. You realize that the anticipation of difficulty was worse than the difficulty itself. This pattern repeats every time you choose to start instead of waiting. You gather evidence that you do not need perfect conditions to do good work. That evidence becomes the foundation of a new belief system. You become someone who starts now and figures out the rest along the way. The perfect moment myth dies completely when you stop using it as an excuse. You will catch yourself thinking that you will start after one more video or after you feel more awake. In that moment, you will recognize the myth for what it is and laugh at it. You will remember that you have started under worse conditions and still done fine. You will move toward your desk not because the moment is perfect, but because you are ready to begin. This shift does not happen overnight, but it happens with every small choice you make. Each time you reject the myth, you grow stronger and the myth grows weaker. Eventually, the myth disappears entirely and starting becomes simple again. Chapter 5. The Tiny Start Secret. Big tasks feel scary because your brain imagines all the work from beginning to end. That imagination triggers your brain's warning system and makes you want to escape. The secret is to stop thinking about the whole mountain and only think about the first step. You do not need to study for 3 hours. You only need to open your book and read one sentence. You do not need to finish the entire assignment. You only need to write the first word. This is the tiny start secret, and it changes everything about how you approach hard work. Small beginnings feel easy, and easy beginnings lead to momentum. Momentum carries you forward long after the tiny start is over. Your brain is much more willing to agree to a tiny task than a huge one. If you tell yourself you must study for 4 hours, your brain will fight you immediately. If you tell yourself you will study for 2 minutes, your brain barely notices the request. 2 minutes feels so small that there is no reason to resist it. The trick is that once you start those 2 minutes, you usually keep going. The hardest part was simply getting past the first moment of resistance. This is why the tiny start is so effective for people who struggle with procrastination. You trick your brain into agreeing to something it would normally reject. You can apply this secret to any task that feels overwhelming. Instead of telling yourself to clean your whole room, tell yourself to put away one shirt. Instead of telling yourself to write an entire paper, tell yourself to write one sentence. Instead of telling yourself to read a full chapter, tell yourself to read one paragraph. Once you complete that tiny action, you will often feel like doing a little more. The satisfaction of starting creates a small burst of energy that pushes you forward. You begin to build momentum that makes the rest of the task feel easier. This momentum is the engine that turns tiny starts into big results. The tiny start secret also removes the pressure of perfection from your mind. You are not trying to do great work during those first 2 minutes. You are simply trying to exist in the space of the task. You give yourself full permission to do messy, imperfect, clumsy work at the beginning. That permission removes the fear that usually keeps you stuck in place. Once the fear is gone, your natural ability can take over and do its job. You often find that your work is much better than you expected once you let go of perfection. The tiny start gave you a doorway into flow without demanding anything from you. That is the gentle power of beginning small. You will know the tiny start is working when you stop fighting yourself before sessions. You will no longer need to convince yourself to study because studying starts with something trivial. You might tell yourself you will simply sit at your desk and look at your notes for 30 seconds. That tiny commitment feels so easy that you do it without resistance. And once you are sitting there looking at your notes, you naturally start reading them. The whole process becomes smooth because you never asked your brain to do anything hard. You asked for almost nothing, and your brain gave you everything. This is how you build a habit that feels automatic. The more you practice the tiny start, the more natural it becomes. Your brain begins to associate studying with small, easy actions instead of huge, scary tasks. The thought of sitting down to work no longer triggers resistance because you have changed the story. You know that you are not committing to hours of suffering. You are committing to a tiny action that takes almost no energy. This shift in perspective turns studying from something you dread into something you can handle. You start your sessions with a sense of calm rather than a sense of dread. The tiny start secret gives you a way in when every other door feels locked. Chapter 6. Designing your boring environment. Your environment is constantly whispering suggestions to your brain about what to do next. When your phone is face up on your desk, it whispers that you should check it. When your bed is visible from your chair, it whispers that you should lie down. When your snacks are within reach, they whisper that you should take a break. These whispers are not commands you must obey, but they drain your energy over time. You spend willpower resisting them when you could simply remove them. Designing a boring environment means taking away the things that compete for your attention. You create a space where the most interesting thing in the room is your work. A boring environment sounds negative, but it is actually a gift to your brain. When there is nothing else to do, focusing on your work becomes the natural choice. You do not have to fight distractions because distractions are not there to fight. Your phone is in another room or buried deep inside a drawer. Your video games are hidden from sight so your eyes do not wander toward them. Your desk is clean and empty except for what you need for this session. This simplicity reduces the mental effort required to stay on track. You save your willpower for thinking about your material instead of resisting temptations. You can start designing your boring environment by noticing what usually pulls you away. Pay attention to the moments when you lose focus and see what caught your eye. Maybe it was your phone lighting up with a notification that you had to check. Maybe it was the open tab on your computer showing a video you wanted to watch. Maybe it was the clutter on your desk that made you feel overwhelmed and ready to quit. Each of these things is a trap that your environment set for you. Once you notice them, you can remove them or hide them before you start. You become the architect of your space rather than a victim of it. The boring environment also helps you get into a flow state more quickly. When your senses are not bombarded with interesting things, your mind settles down. You stop looking around for stimulation and start looking at your work for it. The material that once seemed boring becomes more engaging because it is all you have. You notice details you missed before because your attention is fully available. Your thoughts go deeper because they are not constantly interrupted by external noise. This deeper focus makes your study sessions more effective in less time. You actually finish faster because you spend more time working and less time wandering. You do not need to live in an empty room to benefit from this principle. You simply need to set up your space intentionally before each study session. Clear your desk of everything except your materials and a glass of water. Put your phone in a drawer or in another room where you cannot see it. Close unnecessary tabs on your computer and silence notifications. Put on noise-canceling headphones or soft background music if silence feels strange. These actions take only a few minutes but save you hours of lost focus. You are paying a small cost up front to avoid a large cost later. This is the smart way to protect your attention. Your environment will become a trigger that tells your brain it is time to work. When you sit down at your clean desk with your phone put away, your brain knows what is coming. It stops preparing for distraction and starts preparing for focus. This trigger becomes stronger the more consistently you use it. Soon, just sitting in your designed space will make you feel like studying. You will not have to convince yourself because the environment does the convincing. Your boring environment becomes the foundation of your automatic study habit. You built it once, and it works for you every single day. Chapter 7. The 80% Rule. Perfectionism is one of the most common hidden causes of procrastination. You delay starting because you are afraid your work will not be good enough. You rewrite the same sentence 10 times because it has to sound just right. You wait until you feel fully prepared because anything less feels like failure. This need for perfection keeps you stuck in a loop of preparation without action. The 80% rule is the solution to this trap. It says that doing good enough work on time is better than doing perfect work too late. You give yourself permission to stop at 80% and move forward with your life. When you aim for 100% perfection, every small mistake feels like a disaster. Your standards become so high that nothing you do meets them. You end up avoiding the work entirely because the fear of falling short is too painful. This is why perfectionists often struggle with procrastination more than anyone else. They care deeply about doing well, but that caring becomes a prison. The 80% rule frees you from that prison by lowering the bar just enough. You are still doing excellent work, but you are no longer chasing something impossible. You are choosing progress over perfection, and progress is what actually moves your life forward. The 80% rule also helps you finish things instead of endlessly polishing them. Many people spend hours making small improvements that nobody will ever notice. They rearrange sentences or adjust formatting long after the work is already good enough. This extra time could have been spent starting the next task or resting for tomorrow. The 80% rule asks you to ask one simple question before you continue. Is this good enough to move forward, or am I just being picky? If the work meets the basic requirements, you stop and call it done. This discipline of finishing is what separates productive people from people who stay busy. You might worry that the 80% rule means you are settling for low quality. That is not what this rule means at all. It means you are being smart about where you put your energy. You still do your best work within a reasonable time frame. You still care about accuracy and clarity and thoughtfulness. You just stop obsessing over details that do not matter to the final result. This balance allows you to produce more work that is still high quality. You become someone who delivers consistently rather than someone who delivers rarely. Consistency is more valuable than occasional perfection in almost every area of life. Applying the 80% rule takes practice because perfectionism is often a deep habit. You will feel uncomfortable when you leave a sentence that could be better. You will feel like you are being lazy or careless when you stop improving. These feelings are not signs that you are doing something wrong. They are signs that your perfectionism is losing its grip on you. Sit with that discomfort and let it pass while you move to the next task. Each time you choose progress over perfection, you weaken the old pattern. You build a new pattern that values completion as much as quality. Over time, you will notice that the 80% rule makes you more confident. You no longer avoid tasks because they seem too big or too demanding. You trust yourself to do good enough work without getting lost in details. You start more tasks because you know you can finish them without suffering. This confidence spreads to every area of your life, from studying to relationships to personal projects. You become known as someone who gets things done rather than someone who overthinks everything. The 80% rule gives you back the time and energy that perfectionism was stealing. You get to enjoy your accomplishments instead of endlessly chasing an impossible ideal. Chapter 8: Identity Shift, the I Am Method. The words you say about yourself shape the actions you take every single day. If you tell yourself that you are a procrastinator, your brain will find ways to prove you right. If you tell yourself that studying is hard for you, your brain will make sure it stays hard. Your identity is like a story that your brain is constantly trying to make true. Changing your results starts with changing the story you tell about who you are. This is the I Am method, where you shift your identity before you shift your habits. You stop saying you are trying to study and start saying you are a person who studies. This small change in language creates a huge change in behavior. When you say I'm trying to study, your brain hears that studying is optional. Trying implies that failure is possible and expected. It gives you permission to stop when things get hard because you were only trying anyway. When you say I am a person who studies, your brain hears something completely different. It hears that studying is part of your identity, like breathing or sleeping. You do not try to brush your teeth in the morning. You just do it because that is who you are. The same shift happens when you claim studying as part of your identity. You stop negotiating and simply act according to who you believe you are. The I Am method works because your brain hates inconsistency. When you say you are someone who studies, your brain will push you to act like that person. If you claim the identity but then skip a study session, your brain feels a mismatch. That mismatch creates discomfort that pushes you back toward the behavior. You start showing up to study not because you feel motivated, but because you feel wrong not showing up. This is the same force that makes procrastination feel uncomfortable. You are using your own brain's need for consistency to pull you toward your goals. This is a much easier path than trying to force yourself through willpower alone. You can begin this identity shift by changing the language you use out loud and in your head. Stop saying, I am bad at focusing, and start saying, I am learning to focus better. Stop saying, I always procrastinate, and start saying, I am someone who values my time. Stop saying, studying is miserable, and start saying, I'm a person who enjoys learning. These new statements might feel like lies at first because they are not yet true, but your brain does not know that. Your brain hears the statement and starts working to make it real. This is how you grow into a new identity rather than waiting to earn it. Your actions will slowly catch up to your new identity if you give them time. You will have days where you fall back into old patterns and feel like a fraud. That is normal and does not mean the method is failing. It means you are in transition between one version of yourself and another. On those days, you simply return to your new language without judgment. You remind yourself that you are someone who studies and that this day was a small detour. You do not let one bad day define your identity, because your identity is bigger than that. You keep speaking the new story until the new story becomes the truth. Eventually, you will notice that studying feels like part of who you are rather than something you force. You will sit down to work without thinking about it because that is what people like you do. You will feel strange when you go too long without studying because it does not fit your identity. The internal fight that used to drain your energy will fade away. You will have become the person who studies automatically without ever having to argue about it. This is the deepest level of change because it touches your sense of self. The I Am method does not just change what you do, it changes who you believe you are. Chapter 9: The Dopamine Deal. Your brain runs on a chemical called dopamine that makes you feel pleasure and satisfaction. When you scroll through social media or eat something sweet, your brain releases dopamine. This is why those activities feel so good and why you keep going back to them. The problem is that studying does not naturally give you the same dopamine hit. Your brain sees studying as effort without immediate reward, so it prefers the easy pleasures. The dopamine deal is a way to change this equation. You make a deal with your brain where studying comes with small, guaranteed rewards. Over time, your brain starts to crave studying because it knows a reward is coming. The key to the dopamine deal is that the reward must happen immediately after the effort. Your brain does not care about rewards that come next week or next month. It cares about what it gets right now, in this moment. So you create tiny rewards that you give yourself as soon as you finish a study block. Maybe you let yourself watch one short video after 20 minutes of focused work. Maybe you eat a piece of chocolate after reading one section of your textbook. Maybe you stretch or walk around after finishing a set of practice problems. These small rewards teach your brain that studying leads to good things. Your brain starts to want the study session because it wants the reward that follows. You must be careful about the rewards you choose so they do not become new distractions. The reward should be short and clearly separated from the work itself. You do not want to start your reward and then never return to studying. This is why you should set a timer for your reward just like you set a timer for work. Give yourself exactly 5 minutes of break and then return to your desk. The reward should feel like a treat but not like an escape from the work. You are training your brain to associate studying with pleasure, not to replace studying with pleasure. This balance takes practice but becomes natural over time. The dopamine deal also works with the tiny start secret we discussed earlier. You can reward yourself just for starting, not just for finishing. Tell yourself that if you open your book and read one page, you get to listen to your favorite song. That tiny reward makes the act of starting feel exciting rather than heavy. Your brain begins to look forward to the moment when you sit down because something good happens. This positive anticipation replaces the dread that usually comes before a study session. You shift from avoiding the desk to wanting to be at the desk. This is how you build genuine motivation from the inside out. You can also use the dopamine deal to make hard tasks feel more appealing. If you have a subject you really dislike, pair it with something you really enjoy. Listen to a podcast you love while you review your notes. Sit in your favorite coffee shop while you work on difficult problems. Use a special pen that feels nice in your hand only when you study this subject. These associations create positive feelings that make the hard subject feel less painful. Your brain starts to connect the subject with pleasure rather than dread. The work does not change, but your experience of the work changes completely. Over time, you will notice that you need the rewards less often than you used to. The habit of studying becomes its own reward as you start to enjoy the feeling of progress. You will feel satisfaction from finishing your work that did not exist before. This internal satisfaction becomes the new dopamine source that keeps you going. The external rewards were training wheels that helped you build the habit. Now the habit stands on its own without needing constant treats. You have successfully reprogrammed your brain to find pleasure in the act of studying. The dopamine deal gave you a bridge from avoiding work to loving the feeling of getting things done. Chapter 10. The Art of the Active Break. Most people take breaks in a way that actually makes them more tired. They scroll through their phones for 20 minutes and come back feeling drained. They watch a video that turns into 10 videos and lose all their momentum. They lie down and struggle to get back up because their body has relaxed too much. These are passive breaks that steal your energy instead of restoring it. The art of the active break is about resting in a way that refreshes you. You step away from your desk, but you stay engaged with your body and mind. You return to your work feeling better than when you left. An active break involves moving your body or changing your environment in a meaningful way. You stand up and stretch your arms above your head for 2 minutes. You walk around your home or step outside to get some fresh air. You drink a glass of water and take 5 deep breaths to reset your nervous system. These actions are still relaxing, but they do not pull you into a distraction trap. They give your brain a real rest without feeding it cheap entertainment. You return to your desk with clearer thoughts and a body that feels awake. This is the difference between a break that helps and a break that hurts. The timing of your breaks matters just as much as what you do during them. The most effective way to work is in focused blocks followed by short active breaks. You might study for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute active break. This rhythm matches how your brain naturally works before attention starts to fade. You never push yourself to the point of exhaustion because you rest before you get there. Each break becomes a reset button that gives you fresh energy for the next block. You can sustain this rhythm for hours without feeling drained at the end. This is how professional performers and athletes train, and it works for studying too. One common mistake is using breaks to start something you cannot finish. You open a game or a social media app that requires mental energy to play. You get engaged in a conversation that you have to tear yourself away from. These activities are not breaks at all because they demand your attention. They create more mental clutter that makes it harder to focus when you return. Active breaks should feel simple and undemanding, so your mind can truly rest. You want to clear your head, not fill it with more noise. Choosing simple physical activities is the safest way to protect your focus. You can also use active breaks to build small, healthy habits throughout your day. Each break becomes an opportunity to stretch a muscle that gets tight from sitting. Each break becomes a chance to drink water when you would otherwise forget. Each break becomes a moment to step outside and get sunlight that lifts your mood. These small actions add up to better physical health while you improve your studying. You are not just becoming a better student. You are becoming a healthier person who takes care of their body. This makes the breaks feel valuable rather than like wasted time. You look forward to them because they help you in multiple ways. The art of the active break becomes automatic once you practice it consistently. Your body will start to feel when it needs a break before your mind burns out. You will stand up and move without thinking because the pattern is set. You will notice that passive breaks leave you feeling worse, so you naturally avoid them. Your study sessions will feel sustainable rather than like a test of endurance. You will finish your work with energy left over for the rest of your day. This is the power of resting actively instead of resting passively. You become someone who works hard but also rests smart. Chapter 11. Handling the feelings. There will be days when you wake up feeling heavy for no clear reason. Your body feels tired, your mood feels low, and studying feels impossible. These are the feelings that can destroy your momentum if you let them. You might tell yourself that you cannot study today because you are not in the right state. This is the moment where most people give up and wait for a better day. But waiting for better days means you lose a lot of days to nothing. This chapter is about handling those feelings so they do not control your choices. You learn to study even when you feel like doing nothing at all. The first thing to know about feelings is that they are not facts. You feel tired, but that does not mean you are unable to focus. You feel unmotivated, but that does not mean you cannot take action. Feelings are visitors that pass through your body like clouds passing through the sky. They do not have the power to stop you unless you give them that power. You can feel tired and still open your book. You can feel unmotivated and still read one page. Separating your feelings from your actions is one of the most powerful skills you can learn. It frees you from being a slave to your moods. When feelings arrive, your first step is to acknowledge them without fighting them. Say to yourself that you feel tired and that is okay. Say to yourself that you do not want to study and that is okay too. Fighting your feelings makes them stronger because you add resistance to the mix. Accepting them takes away their power to control you. You are not pretending the feelings do not exist. You are simply choosing to act anyway despite how you feel. This is what strong people do when the conditions are not perfect. They move forward while the feelings tag along for the ride. The second step is to lower your expectations for what you will accomplish. On days when you feel great, you can tackle your hardest material for hours. On days when you feel you focus on doing something small and simple. You might review notes you already understand instead of learning something new. You might organize your materials for tomorrow instead of pushing through difficult problems. You might study for 10 minutes instead of your usual hour. Doing something is always better than doing nothing on these days. You keep your streak alive and your confidence intact by showing up. You will often find that the feeling fades once you start moving. The act of beginning sends a signal to your brain that you are safe and capable. Your mood begins to lift because you are no longer avoiding the task. The weight you felt in the morning was mostly the weight of anticipation. Once you are inside the work, that weight disappears and you feel lighter. This pattern happens so often that you can start to predict it. You learn to trust that starting will make you feel better even when you doubt it. Your trust in this pattern grows stronger every time you prove it true. Over time, feelings lose their ability to stop you completely. You have built so much evidence that you can work through them. Your identity shifts from someone who needs to feel good to work to someone who works regardless. This does not mean you never take a true rest day when you are sick or exhausted. It means you stop using mild discomfort as an excuse to abandon your goals. You become someone who is reliable even when the weather inside your head is not perfect. This reliability is what builds the life you want to live. You handle the feelings so they do not handle you. Chapter 12. The Accountability Mirror. Working alone makes it easy to let yourself off the hook when motivation fades. Nobody is watching to see if you kept your promise to study. Nobody will know if you spent the afternoon scrolling instead of working. This lack of outside pressure works against you when your discipline is still growing. The accountability mirror is about creating healthy pressure from outside yourself. You bring someone else into your process who helps you stay true to your word. This person does not punish you or judge you harshly. They simply know what you said you would do, and that knowledge keeps you honest. Your accountability partner can be a friend who also wants to study more consistently. You agree to check in with each other at the end of each day. You share what you plan to study and what you actually completed. There is no shame in falling short because everyone has off days. The power comes from knowing that someone else is aware of your goals. That awareness makes it harder to lie to yourself about what you accomplished. You show up more often because you want to share progress rather than excuses. This simple social pressure works better than most complex productivity systems. You can also use public commitments as a form of accountability without involving another person. Tell a family member that you will study for 1 hour before dinner. Post your study goal in a group chat where people will see it. Write your daily goal on a whiteboard where anyone who visits can see it. These small public statements create a sense of obligation that helps you follow through. Your brain takes commitments more seriously when they are spoken out loud. It treats private promises as optional and public promises as binding. Using this quirk of your brain helps you build consistency. The accountability mirror also works in reverse when you help someone else stay on track. Teaching someone else about your study methods forces you to practice them yourself. Coaching a friend through procrastination reminds you of the tools you have. You become a model of the behavior you want to see in them. This dual accountability strengthens both of you because you rise together. You create a small community of people who support each other through the hard days. This community becomes a source of motivation that never runs out. You help each other stay on the path when individual motivation would fade. Technology can also serve as your accountability mirror if you set it up correctly. You can use apps that track your study time and show you your streak of consistent days. You can set timers that log your focused hours so you see the evidence of your effort. You can share these logs with a friend or keep them as proof to yourself. Seeing your progress in numbers makes it harder to pretend you are doing more than you are. The data becomes a mirror that reflects your actual behavior back to you. You use this reflection to adjust and improve rather than to shame yourself. The ultimate goal of accountability is to build internal discipline that no longer needs outside help. The mirror exists to support you while you grow stronger on your own. Over time, you will need less external pressure because your own standards have risen. You will hold yourself accountable without anyone watching because you respect yourself. You will keep promises to yourself the same way you keep promises to others. This is the stage where studying becomes automatic because you are fully reliable. The accountability mirror helped you get there, but you now carry that reliability inside yourself. Chapter 13. Embracing Boredom. Boredom has become one of the most feared experiences in modern life. The moment you feel bored, you reach for your phone to escape the feeling. You have trained yourself to need constant entertainment every second of the day. This training has destroyed your ability to focus on anything that takes time. When you sit down to study, your brain panics because there is no quick stimulation. It screams at you to find something more exciting to do. Embracing boredom means learning to sit with that feeling without running away. You reclaim your ability to focus by becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. Boredom is actually a sign that your brain is ready to engage deeply with something. When you feel bored, your brain is searching for something meaningful to focus on. If you give it a phone, it will settle for shallow entertainment. If you give it your studies, it will eventually sink into deep focus. The boredom is just the transition period between distraction and engagement. You have to sit through that transition without giving up too early. Most people quit during this uncomfortable gap and never reach the good part. Learning to stay through the gap is what separates serious students from everyone else. You can practice embracing boredom by creating moments of intentional stillness. Spend 5 minutes sitting with no phone, no book, no music, nothing at all. Let your mind wander without giving it anything new to consume. This exercise feels uncomfortable at first because you are so used to stimulation. But each time you do it, you strengthen your ability to be with yourself. You prove that boredom will not kill you and that you can survive it. This strength transfers directly to your study sessions, where focus is required. You become less afraid of the quiet moments that precede deep work. Another way to embrace boredom is to remove your usual escape routes during study time. Put your phone in another room where you cannot reach it easily. Close your internet browser so you cannot switch to entertainment. Sit in a room with nothing to do except your work or sit still. When boredom hits, you have only two choices. You can sit there doing nothing, or you can do your work. Since doing nothing is actually more boring than working, you eventually choose to work. This is how you use boredom as a tool rather than an enemy. You design the situation so work becomes the most interesting option available. You will notice that your best ideas often come during moments of boredom. When your brain is not constantly fed entertainment, it starts making connections. It solves problems you were stuck on and creates ideas you never expected. The boredom creates space for creativity to emerge from the background. This is why some of the greatest thinkers spent time walking alone with no distractions. They understood that boredom is not empty time but fertile time. Your studies will benefit from this same principle when you allow boredom to exist. You give your brain room to breathe and connect and understand more deeply. Over time, your tolerance for boredom will grow until it no longer bothers you. You will sit down to study and feel calm rather than restless. The need to check your phone every few minutes will fade away. You will find satisfaction in long stretches of focused work that used to feel impossible. Your attention span will become a superpower that sets you apart from most people. You will accomplish more in 2 hours than others accomplish in a full day. Embracing boredom gave you back your ability to focus deeply. And deep focus is the foundation of all meaningful learning. Chapter 14. The Comeback Code. You will slip up at some point on this journey because you are human. You will have a day where you procrastinate and feel like you lost all your progress. You will miss a study session and feel the old guilt creeping back in. The most important moment is not when you slip, but what you do after you slip. Most people let one bad day turn into a week of bad days. They tell themselves they broke their streak, so they might as well stop trying. The comeback code is your plan for returning to your habits immediately after a slip. You learn to recover so fast that one mistake never becomes a collapse. The first rule of the comeback code is to never miss twice in a row. You can miss one study session, and that is perfectly fine. You can have a day where you do nothing, and that is allowed. But you absolutely cannot miss the very next session that comes after. That next session is your comeback moment where you prove to yourself that one slip does not define you. You show up even if you feel guilty or embarrassed or unmotivated. You do the smallest version of your habit just to keep the chain alive. This single rule protects you from the spiral that destroys most people's progress. The second rule is to skip the guilt and go straight to action. Guilt is a trap that makes you feel bad without helping you do better. You might spend hours feeling ashamed about missing your study time. Those hours of shame could have been hours of actual studying. Instead of sitting in guilt, you simply ask what you can do right now. Even 5 minutes of work is better than 5 minutes of self-punishment. You forgive yourself quickly because guilt serves no useful purpose. You focus on what comes next rather than what already happened. When you make your comeback, you should lower your expectations for that session. Do not try to do twice the work to make up for what you missed. That approach leads to burnout and makes you want to quit again. Instead, do a very small session that feels easy and manageable. You are not trying to catch up in one day. You are trying to rebuild the habit of showing up. Once the habit is back in place, you can gradually increase your workload again. The priority is consistency, not catching up. Consistency will catch you up faster than pushing too hard and burning out. You can also use your comeback as a learning opportunity to understand why you slipped. Did you skip a session because your environment was too distracting? Did you miss your study time because you did not set a clear schedule? Did you feel overwhelmed and avoid the work because it seemed too big? These questions help you identify the weakness in your system so you can fix it. A slip is not a sign that you are failing. It is feedback that something in your approach needs adjustment. You use that feedback to make your system stronger for next time. This turns your mistakes into upgrades. The comeback code becomes easier the more you practice it. Your first slip might feel like a huge deal that shakes your confidence. Your 10th slip will feel like a small bump that you handle without stress. You will have built so much evidence that you can recover that slipping no longer scares you. You trust yourself to come back because you have done it many times before. This trust is the ultimate form of confidence that comes from experience. You become someone who is not perfect but who is resilient. And resilience is more valuable than perfection in every way that matters. Chapter 15. Designing your future self. Every habit you build today is a gift you give to the person you will become tomorrow. The small choices you make about studying are not just about passing a class. They are about designing the kind of person you will be for the rest of your life. When you choose to study instead of procrastinate, you tell yourself a story. The story is that you are someone who values growth and keeps promises to yourself. This story becomes the foundation of your identity as you move through the world. Your future self is being built right now by the actions you take today. You have the power to design that person intentionally instead of letting life design them for you. Think about the person you want to be 5 years from now. Do you want that person to be confident and capable? Do you want that person to trust themselves and follow through on their goals? That person is created by thousands of small decisions made between now and then. Every time you sit down to study when you would rather relax, you add a brick to that foundation. Every time you push through discomfort instead of quitting, you strengthen that future person. You are not just learning material for a test. You are training yourself to be the kind of person who can achieve anything. The studying is practice for the larger challenges life will bring you. Your future self will thank you for the habits you build during this time. There will come a day when you face a difficult challenge that requires discipline. On that day, you will not have to figure out how to focus for the first time. You will already have years of practice showing up even when it is hard. The habits you build today will be automatic by then, working for you without effort. You will handle the challenge with calm and confidence because you built that capacity. Your future self will look back at this moment and feel gratitude. They will know that the work you did today made their life possible. You can make this process more powerful by visualizing your future self regularly. Close your eyes and imagine yourself 5 years from now achieving something important. See that version of you working hard, staying focused, and handling pressure with grace. Now ask yourself what that person does differently than you do today. What habits do they have that you are still building? What mindset do they carry that you are still learning? Use that vision as a compass that guides your daily choices. You are not just studying to pass a test. You are studying to become that person you see in your mind. The design of your future self also includes rest and balance, not just constant work. Your future self will need to know how to rest without guilt and play without anxiety. They will need to value their health and relationships as much as their achievements. You are building those habits too by taking active breaks and maintaining balance. A future self who burns out is not a successful future self. You want to design someone who can sustain success over the long term. This means practicing rest and recovery with the same intention you practice focus. You become someone who works hard but also lives well. As you finish this book, remember that you already have everything you need to become that person. The tools and strategies in these chapters are here to help you, but the power comes from you and your daily choices. You have already taken the biggest step by seeking to understand how to change. Now you get to put that understanding into action one day at a time. Your future self is watching and cheering for you. They know what you are capable of even when you doubt yourself. Go become the person you have been designing all along. Conclusion. You started this book wanting to make procrastination feel uncomfortable and studying feel automatic. That goal is not only possible but closer than you think after working through these chapters. The shift does not happen because you suddenly have more willpower than everyone else. It happens because you have built a system that works with your brain instead of against it. You have learned to make starting easy, to design your environment for focus, and to handle the hard days without collapsing. These tools are now part of your toolkit, ready to use whenever you need them. The person who began this book is not the same person who is finishing it. You have grown, and that growth will continue with every choice you make from here. The journey to becoming someone who studies automatically is a lifelong practice, not a one-time event. There will be days when old habits try to pull you back into old patterns. On those days, you will remember the tiny start and the 5-second rule. You will remember that one slip does not define you and that you can always make a comeback. You will remember that you are someone who studies because that is part of your identity now. The work you put into building these habits will return to you multiplied in confidence, capability, and freedom. You will walk through life knowing that when something needs to be done, you are the person who will do it. That knowledge is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Now go show your future self what you are made of.